Hey, welcome back. It's week before Christmas. Thought I'd do an update. I hadn't touched any of the stuff for a few weeks because I was working in the house in the bedroom, for family coming into town for the holidays. But I had bought a new float and accelerator pump for the good 800 Pontiac Quadrajet, so I can get it back together and possibly put it on the C10 that had in another video I posted had broke the transmission in half. But I've also this morning picked up the rebuilt fresh C10 Turbo 350 because I'd bought a core one and dropped it off last week, and luckily they did it quick and I was able to pick it up this morning, so we'll be doing a different video on that. I was just going to show the new parts. So the old accelerator pump was dry and the skirt had torn, and the old girl, you don't want to let her be out there with a torn skirt. It's just not right. Then you got your new one, which I think pretty much all the new ones will be this blue material, which I believe is supposed to be more compatible for the well, don't get me started, but on alcohol that's in the dang gasoline that shouldn't be there, but we won't get into all that. So we'll be swapping that spring and clip over. If you had never done that, there's not much to it. I'm going to reuse the old gasket just as it was, and then we got this great little brass float, and these are just lovable little old school things. And I haven't really had problems with the phenolic floats, but when you got the brass one that's soldered together, just kind of gives you that old-timey feel of quality, and don't second guess that this foamy material that you're always thinking somehow is going to suck up the gas and not work. You don't have that worry on this one because the gas can't put a hole in that, in that brass float. So we're going to put that together and get this section here buttoned up and closed up. I'm going to check back in as I get some of that assembled, because I need both my hands kinda. So the pretty little brass float is in place. The little wire clip for the needle that goes in the seat is there. You're going to want to kind of push that up to simulate the float up, and then in this back area you measure the height of the float. It's usually pretty close out of the box. This one's perfect unless it floods and boils out. Not holding the pressure later, but we'll just roll with it and see how it goes. But I do measure it. There's a little L-shaped tool that comes in your carb rebuild kits. It's also handy for valve spring installed height setup if you don't have other tools for that, to trying to see your little fractions to measure. But your float, the job of the float is to float and push down that needle and shut off the fuel inlet. If it doesn't work, gas just pours out of the carburetor and you're done. And it might catch on fire and burn your car to the ground. So, good to know. Well, with a little wrestling, the new accelerator pump is assembled with the old spring. Performance trick for more pump shot if you have extra carburetor parts is these pump rods and springs can vary in length, and you can swap parts around and try to stiffen this pressure. Can get you more pump shot, when you're hitting it, when you're doing some tuning. So I hadn't done it. I've in the past fiddled around with that, and maybe I've got a stiffer spring in it now. But this carb's always worked good, so I guess I got it right. So we're not going to mess with changing this spring, because this carb is a good one. So we're going to work towards getting the metering rods and the little blocky dealio in there so I can get the top down on it. It should be pretty well ready to install in a few. Alright, well, one of the things that's probably the tedious part of putting together one of these second generation good Quadrajets from the latter 70s is because you have to have this piece in before you put these. It blocks your view of trying to get the metering rods into the jets. And then this right here is a phenolic ring that kind of seats the power piston down, and that can just pop right out. So sometimes it's really tricky. Like, you want to be able to push on your power spring and it push back up, and those tensions can be changed with different springs. For lower vacuum idle and bigger cams, you'll want a lower tension spring. Stock cam engines have the highest vacuum, take the stiffest spring, so on and so forth. But the trick is, boy, you'll have a booger of a time if that thing won't stay down for you, because you still got to work the gasket on and get it all together. And so what I'll do is, once the gasket's in place, I'll have the screwdriver here holding that down when I go to lay the top on until it's all the way down, and then slip the screwdriver out. But in this little area here, you can sort of stake it, like to jam it to try to smear the material to catch, kind of like if you're staking a nut. Not real violently, but just kind of scrape it with a screwdriver a little bit and try to get it to catch so it'll stay down, because I've had sometimes those rings just won't hold it down and really frustrate you when you're putting together, because this is where Quadrajets get put together wrong, and somebody does not have the rods in the holes before they put the top on, and then they just jam it together and bend the metering rods, and the carburetor will be totally inoperable and junk. And then of course the person who did that will be going to go buy an Edelbrock or a Holly and trash talk Quadrajets because they don't know how to work on anything. That's sort of the story of anything where people don't know how to do something and then they badmouth it instead of figuring out it was them that was the problem. But we'll see if we can get this gasket in place here, because, you know, if it ain't torn, it isn't bad. So, just saying. Gasket is in place, and because these later models do not have a full open hole where the accelerator pump is, that's also pushing up from underneath trying to bust through. When you build the early model Quadrajet, there's a big round hole and you don't have to fight the accelerator pump from pushing the gasket up trying to rip your power piston out. So this, in combination with the flat screwdriver holding down the power piston, is all related to keeping your gasket in place, because you notice it's lifted in this side but it's not over here, and it's on the dowel pins and everything. So I'm going to try to make this work. Success. Note the dude is sticking through there, fully seated. Now I just got to keep my left hand on it and get a couple screws down. Now this carburetor, I have de-choked it because I kind of do that on my performance-oriented, personal carburetors. But got the one bolt here, and then this here. This little deflector comes in like 80s model Quadrajets, and we like to just add them just for slosh, like blocking primary secondary interference from something happening and some fuel sloshing around. Sometimes stuff comes out of the vent, or you pop the 4-barrel and you don't want it to backwash down the primary and make it die at idle. Now these down in here, in this area, there's these 2 screws here. You're going to want to use needle nose pliers to lay those in place. So usually you grab it and kind of point it. Another area you can improve your 2nd gen Quadrajet with parts from a 1st gen is if you can score off a 60s Quadrajet the accelerator pump vertical rod that uses the cotter pin, one of those. Because once again, some penny pinching engineers at some point decided to put a zigzag bend in this rod, so instead of just doing it like it was perfect, because that makes it really easy to work on the top of the carburetor without getting into it. But Last little touch is the magical metering rods you put in. And they just drop in. Well, we're just going to pretend that didn't happen and turn off the video. Thanks for watching.